This
Good
conference will
morning,
now be recorded.
good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the attendees who join us today. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Rohit Kandari. I'm the Associate Director of Outreach at UnivAssist. I'll have our co-presenters introduce themselves as well.
My name is Kate Lotz. I think that I recognize a lot of names in this list, so it's great to see everybody. I'm the Associate Director of Communications at KIC UnivAssist.
Hi everyone, my name is Amber Longtin. I'm a Senior Admissions Counselor at Michigan State University. Honored to be with you all and excited to share and learn.
Super. Thanks, Kate and Amber. Firstly, I do hope that everyone is doing well. You and your families are keeping safe. That's one of the number one priorities for us. I'm going to request all of us to be on mute during the length of the session. We want this session to be engaging. So if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to put them in the chat box. We will keep some dedicated time at the end for Q&As. These are some really challenging times ahead of us and very uncertain times actually, as we are adapting to the new normal in virtual student recruitment. The borders are closed. There's a lot of uncertainty when they would open. Travel is unlikely, by at least until the end of this year. Even if they do open, we don't know whether schools are going to be hosting visitors. So that does leave us with armchair recruiting or virtual recruitment as the best way forward. Anecdotally, we have heard from counselors that a lot of these students are webinared out. They are being selective in what they choose to share with students. And something that students do prefer is an engagement where it's more personalized and more individualized. And offers the flexibility. So that's something that is coming from the counselors that we're hearing. But today's webinar will essentially focus on the who, what, and how of virtual recruitment, where we will dive into some data analysis of these attendees. Who are these attendees who are attending these sessions? What are some of the great engagement or communication strategies that you could put together, and how to make these events successful and effective for your audience. So without further ado, I'm gonna just dive into the data analysis of it. That this is really the overview of the data set or the sample size that we're using for this analysis. We have over 7,500 respondents across 5 events that we've done so far across 3 regions, which are essentially India, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. We do see typically between 45 to 60% of attendees from this data set who are attending the event, and it differs from region to region. A quick thought that I wanted to share before I move forward is that this data is analyzed particularly from an undergraduate overview, because these events were undergraduate focused. So the data might be more relevant for undergrad admission office, but there might still be some learnings that some of the grad admission attendees who have joined us today. Regarding the demographics, we're seeing a majority of interest coming from high school, typically from grade 10 and beyond. Almost 75% of these attendees were from grade 10, 11, and 12. We are seeing a lot of counselors attend these events as well. So, that also probably tells us that counselors are looking forward to such events. They're looking for information. And it's also interesting to note that at least 13% of these attendees were repeat attendees from previous events, which tells us that probably they're having good experiences or good engagement with universities, or they're also broadening their option choices and attending these events to explore more opportunities for themselves. The slide gives you an overview of the top countries of origin, where these students are coming from. The events in India were country focused, and still we've seen a diverse group of students coming from different countries, and these have been ordered from high percentage to a lower percentage. So you can see that we've had pretty diverse group of students from different countries joining these events. If you can notice, we actually had a lot of students who joined from Nepal, which was actually not one of the focus areas for these events, or we didn't have a lot of outreach in these events, but we did see a high interest in Nepal, which is probably something to take away and keep engaging in that region. So we're seeing that interest coming in from Nepal. Standardized tests, we are seeing a very high percentage of students who are joining these events who have either taken or planning to take these standardized tests, which also provides for a better conversation opportunity while we are doing these events, and also indicates a higher level of student interest that show up at these virtual events. Something that would be a key takeaway. Overall, I think, and these are just bifurcations from region, but overall, I think more than 75% of students who attended or responded were the ones who have taken the SAT or are planning to take the SAT, ACT, IELTS, or TOEFL. So that's something to take away from this slide. All right, this is pretty interesting. We've kind of bifurcated overall what students are looking at from a destination standpoint, and US, although still remains to be the top destination, we are seeing a dip in the interest in US as compared to earlier years or earlier events that we've done pre-COVID era. We are also seeing the gap between US and these other countries shrink. So Canada is catching up pretty fast. So that's something to think about for US institutions. Probably need to engage even harder and probably showcase that nothing has changed and we're still welcoming. So that's something that I would encourage US institutions to think about. We are also seeing an expansion in the destination set. So just to share a number, 47% of attendees had more than 4 country choices, 4 or more than 4 country choices. So that's pretty interesting. So students are definitely looking at more destination choices than earlier. And then this is a region-wise bifurcation of the data. We're seeing varied interest in student destination across all regions. As you can see that Australia and New Zealand are less popular in Latin America, while they're more inclined towards US and France as compared to the other regions, which is India and Southeast Asia. Netherlands, for example, is more popular in Southeast Asia. So one of the things I would recommend is strategizing your recruitment efforts or recruitment activities based on these statistics and some of the statistics that you might gather on your own, but strategizing these things. So something to think about. This slide gives a broad overview of subjects or areas of interest that these respondents were interested in. We've categorized them into certain fields. So business management, accounting, and finance was one category, and similarly engineering, technology, computer science, etc. But yeah, there's definitely been a diverse interest in subjects or areas of interest. We're seeing India to be pretty diverse with these, and I'm going to talk about it. But business and humanities overall are at a much higher interest than engineering and computer science put together. So a lot of students are actually looking at non-STEM courses across these regions. And we're going to dive into the data for individual regions. Okay, so this slide basically gives you a region-wise bifurcation for areas or subjects of interest. And again, these vary by region. So for example, you can see that Latin America probably has less or is giving less importance on engineering, computer science, humanities as compared to India and Southeast Asia, while it's putting more emphasis on mathematics and statistics or sports management and so on. Similarly, for Southeast Asia, we're seeing more interest in humanities, in engineering, natural sciences, law, as compared to some of these other regions. And India overall, I mean, it's been pretty diverse, but yeah, we're from a comparative analysis, we're seeing more interest in business, computer science, medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and hospitality related courses. So yeah, this is basically something to think about when recruiting in these regions, and incorporating these regional differences into your presentation when presenting to students across different regions. And we're just getting started with the whole virtual recruitment exercise. It's been probably less than 5 months or 6 months that we've actually entered into the virtual recruitment arena. And as we continue with this, we will have more data and solid analysis, and we'll keep bringing those to you. So some of my key takeaways from this overall analysis is that not having a single approach for all regions and developing relevant communication strategy based on some of the data analysis across these regions. Virtual events are effective. That's something that we've heard from a lot of counselors, a lot of students, when we've taken feedback. So they are finding these pretty effective and productive as well. We're seeing a high interest of students who are attending these events, and these solutions are probably here to stick for a while, especially because schools are being supportive of it. It doesn't take away their valuable class time, which has always been the case with some of these recruitment travels that we do, especially right now where majority of their classes are online, so they're finding it difficult to manage these schedules as well. So yeah, we're also seeing a high percentage of counselors who are attending, as I pointed out earlier, and probably because counselors aren't getting a lot of information that they would have gotten otherwise when having visitors over at their school. So yeah, that's something about the virtual events and how it is panning out for all of us. We are seeing increased competition amongst the destination choices and also between universities, because the students are expanding their destination sets or destination choices, and exploring more options for themselves. And moreover, these virtual solutions are sort of cost effective in most part, but universities with lower budgets are probably doing the same thing as universities with way higher budgets. So that is also creating certain competitive environment for universities, where students are now getting more options to choose from, and interacting with way more universities than they would have otherwise. That in turn demands for a lot of re-engagement. As I said, we are seeing a lot of these students or attendees who are coming back to these events over and over again, and that's probably because they want to explore more choices, or they haven't gotten complete information, or they want more information from some of these universities who are attending. So yeah, that's pretty much, an overview. It's important for us to be visible right now as we are exploring this territory of virtual recruitment, and as students are navigating. We anecdotally, again, we have heard that students are still looking at quality education. They still want to explore higher education opportunities for themselves. So my advice, and as a closing note, would be to just hang in there. Keep continuing what you're doing at its best, and we'll see those fruits coming in. So that will be all from my end. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Kate to take you further with the presentation. Over to you, Kate.
Thanks, Rohit. So that data is super interesting, and I'm really glad we had a chance to kind of look at that larger overview before diving into this part. So my slides, what I'm looking at is a little bit more of a specific dive into what students and counselors really want. So I'm getting the information for my next few slides from three main sources. One is we always send a post-event survey to all the attendees that we have at the Webby Fairs. The survey usually goes out between 1 and 3 days afterwards. And so over 5 events, we've had over 425 students complete the survey across those 5 events. So so kind of keep that in mind. The second thing that I'm pulling a lot of information from for this is personal and individual conversations that we are having with counselors on our own, and students and things like that, and kind of the feedback they're giving to us just because we know them. And so we're touching base with them and trying to find out, what can we do? What are you looking for? How can we better help you? And the third resource of information is really the 15 live hours that I've had now. We've done 5 events, each one has been 3 hours long, and so I've been in these events for 15 hours live, and we've kind of been able to go in and out of different people's rooms and see how students are interacting and see what really hits and what doesn't. So with that in mind, what we're really finding is that students, like the rest of us, are webinared out. They don't want to sit through presentations. Let's face it, they don't want to sit through presentations in the best of times, even when it's, in person. So sitting in front of their computer for more time than they have to go to school and then they're using for their entertainment and everything else is really kind of a hard sell. And they also don't want to be managing a calendar and registering for multiple webinars and online events. And we're getting a lot of feedback from counselors saying, I get 100 emails a day from different universities and institutions inviting me to their specific webinar or their specific event, and it's too much to manage. It's hard to do. Again, it's hard to do outreach in the best of times and stand out. But when everybody's doing individual events, it becomes really challenging to actually capture that attention and get people to come, because they don't want to spend their entire week coming to all these different events for each individual institution. And another thing is that they don't want to get any more emails. Like the rest of us, emails is really not the way that they want to get communication from you or from us or from anybody. Conversely, what they do want is they want to talk to you directly. One thing that is really valuable in an in-person, or not an in-person, excuse me, a virtual event, is that you can have that opportunity to make it like an in-person event. You should not use it as an opportunity to just answer questions and send students to your website and give them a download to a brochure, because they can do that on their own time. They can go to your website at any time. What they really want to do is have conversations with you and have that chance to ask their own questions. They want the flexibility to say, okay, I want to talk to you for 5 minutes and then I'm done. They don't want to sit through your presentation and then your colleague's presentation and the other university's presentation, all to just get to be able to ask their one question or hope that you answer their one question in your presentation. Another thing is, again, they don't want to manage a whole bunch of events, so they want that convenience of being able to interact with a bunch of institutions in one event. It makes it easier for them, it makes it easier for their counselors, and that way they're really able to not only better manage their time, but also find a variety of institutions and be able to kind of compare and contrast them in a way to help them really find that right fit. And the third thing is that, again, they don't want more emails. They want you to communicate with them according to their preferences. Where are students? They are not checking their emails. I promise you. They are on social media. They're on places like Instagram. It's better to reach them maybe through their counselor, so it's a source that they better trust and are in communication with anyway. And kind of just a pro tip that I would have is, a lot of you, when you're on the road and when you communicate with students, and electronically, you have them fill out a contact form, right? And a lot of those fields are optional. That it might be an option to fill out their phone or their email or their social media handles or whatever. And my advice would be to actually pay attention to what they're filling out. If they're filling out their social media handle, if they're giving you their phone number, that means they want you to contact them that way, so try sending them WhatsApp messages if they give you their phone number. If they don't want to give you their email, then that means it's probably not going to be a great, useful way for you to get in touch with them anyway. So that's just something to think about. If I could have the next slide, please, Rohit. Thank you. And now when we're talking about when you're actually in the event, what should you be doing when you're live with them? My biggest takeaway is to be welcoming. You really have to bring that same level of professionalism and enthusiasm to a virtual event, the same way that you would if you're presenting at their school. And you need to give them personal attention. You need to remember that they are there to talk to you. They're not there to just gather information and website links. They really want that personal connection, and so give them that personal connection. In the feedback survey that we have an open field that's optional where people can write in, what things did you like best about the Webby for a virtual event? And it's amazing how many comments we got from students. Again, this is an optional field and it's an optional survey where they would specifically mention the enthusiasm and how they felt like they were really welcomed and engaged, and they would name specific universities and they would name specific people. And surprise for Amber, these last two comments on the right, the two comments on the right there, were actually, they named Amber, first name and last name, and these were two different events. So kudos to you, Amber, on that one. But that's really what you're going for, is you want a student to remember your name 3 days later and to mention, oh, it was so great because I really felt like this person was connecting with me and wanted to make me feel like I was a part of the community. If I could have the next slide, Rohit, please. Thank you. So again, students want to talk to you. They want to see you and hear you. If you're in a virtual event, turn your camera on, speak to them. They don't want you to just type back in the chat box, because again, they can get that by going to your website anytime. They can get that by writing you an email at any time. This is not an email communication. So this is really your chance to have that authentic conversation with them. Marketers spend so much time and energy and strategy trying to force something authentic, trying to force that authentic connection. This is actually an opportunity where you have it, so don't squander it. Please make sure that you are authentic and you are, you're showing them the real you. They want to connect with you. They don't want to connect with your website. So some students really, really will want to come on video, and they will want to have that one-on-one kind of Zoom-like or Skype-like connection where you're both talking on live video, and others will not. Some students are probably sitting at home in their pajamas in their bed, and they don't want to go on video. And so don't be offended if you invite them to go on video and they're like, no. It doesn't mean that they're not interested. It just means that that's not their style. So just go with the flow. I would recommend that you just be ready to kind of, again, meet the students to communicate where they would prefer to communicate with you, and kind of be ready to meet all levels there. Based on the individual preferences of the student. Some will come to virtual events really with a whole list of questions, and they'll be very specific and they'll be very prepared, and that's great. And others will just kind of come into your virtual space and just kind of look at you. And again, like, think about it as if what happens when you're live and on the road. You get students like that at your table for sure. You get students like that at your events in person, where they just kind of come and they're just kind of looking at you, like expecting you to entertain them or something. And you have to be on the ball. You have to be ready for that, So be ready to kind of, if a student comes in and just doesn't really know what to say, be ready to run the conversation, be ready to start something and ask them questions. And even if they're not responding, then maybe just, have your 2-minute elevator pitch about telling them a little bit about campus or whatever. Don't just waste the time and the space by waiting for them to be the ones to engage. Rohit, please. Thank you. Another thing that I would recommend is to make it a team effort. This is, it doesn't have to be a one-person show. Frankly, all of us are tired of not only being, in like attending webinars, but we're also tired of being on Zoom all the time and on Skype and on wherever else GoToMeeting. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. They say it's like a real mental health crisis. So everybody, it's okay. It doesn't have to be just you. Let other people share the space with you. Invite faculty to participate in virtual events with you. Not for the whole thing, it doesn't necessarily have to be, but have them come on and, give a 10-20-minute talk about their department and ways that they engage with students. And students will love to hear that. They will love to hear from a current student or a former student. Bring your current and former students to come and participate in these events with you. Have somebody manage the chat box if there is one, and somebody else be the one speaking, so you don't have to be worried about all the things at once. One thing that we did get a lot of comments on in our feedback was students saying, either they really appreciated the fact that the university rep answered all their questions, or if they didn't, then they absolutely made a point to say, the university rep did not answer my question, and they couldn't, they missed my question in the chat box, and they didn't answer everyone. They only answered the questions that they wanted to answer, and again, they'll remember that in a negative way too. So even if they ask a question you don't want to answer, maybe at least acknowledge it or find a way to kind of pivot and try and turn the conversation in a way that you would prefer it to go, but give them that acknowledgement, because again, they're live and they want to be acknowledged. They're taking the time out of their own day to do that. I think that's it. Rohit, if you want to move to the next one, please. Thank you. So again, actively engage them. Don't wait for them to make the first move. This is really your chance to drive the conversation. And students also pointed out in their feedback that they found it awkward, frankly, if they came into a university room and the rep just kind of stared back at them, instead of really having something prepared. And that doesn't mean that they want to sit through a 20-minute presentation. It doesn't mean that. It means that they want you to kind of be the adult, in the room, and to kind of drive that conversation and maybe ask them some questions or give them something to think about. Rohit? Thank you. So finally, just some marketing recommendations I have. Students do still want to get your materials. We're also hearing from them that too. Where do I get the brochure? Where do I, I still want a copy of this. So have downloadable copies of your brochure and your business card and even your PowerPoint slides if you're doing a presentation. We get a lot of comments on that too. Create as much visual aid as you can to help spark the conversation. So even if you're not presenting, it doesn't have to be just your face on there. That also takes some of the pressure off you. You can put up something like a slide of FAQs or maybe like a list of fun facts or a picture of the campus, a list of majors, anything that will kind of give something for the students to look at and think about, and maybe it might even spark a question. If you're presenting, keep it short and simple and sweet. That's really the three things that you remember. 5 to 10 minutes max, I would say. Again, students, and then they'll ask more questions or they'll ask you for more if they want more. And when you're presenting, also be cognizant of the bandwidth. As good as the platform that you're using for virtual recruitment is kind of still dependent on the bandwidth of the student at the other end. And that's something you can never really predict. The platform will help make sure that it's a smooth experience, but it can't predict that if you're showing a video and it looks great on your end, it might not look great on the student's end every time, because maybe they're joining from their phone, like out in the country somewhere, and they really don't have the bandwidth to do that. So just try and keep it as simple as possible and keep it current and relevant. We also do get a lot of comments from students saying, I wish the universities would also talk about winter and spring intake and not just focus on fall, because realistically, they're maybe not ready or they're not able to travel or whatever it is, but it's your opportunity to kind of, again, be live, be authentic, and really make this a real connection, and you're not just a stand-in for the website where they can also get information. You're giving them up-to-date information. You're answering their questions about the pandemic and how is it affecting your institution, and maybe realistically what students can kind of think about and how they can tailor their plans. And then the last thing is, this is very simple, but just have an FAQs document handy with you in the virtual event. So if you're getting a lot of the same questions, and you already know what they are if you attend in-person events, so just have those answers ready to copy paste if you're the person manning the chat box. So that way, you're not having to spend a lot of time typing a lot of things out, and keep important links. So those are just some recommendations that I have, and now I'd like to turn it over to Amber for the reality on the ground on her end.
All right, well, thank you so much. I'm beyond flattered. I think Kate's feedback was really helpful for me, but I didn't know, for starters, that students thought I was doing okay, so that's helpful. But also it's really nice to actually see what they're thinking, because all of us are doing our best digitally, but we aren't really getting feedback. We're seeing students occasionally if they choose to turn on their webcams, which is not that often, frankly. And so it's us talking into a void, and anytime we can actually get feedback, that's so incredibly helpful. When I accepted this panel, I was like, oh great, I've been doing so much. I know exactly what I'll talk about. And then I really thought about it. And I think the problem with sharing kind of digital recruitment strategies is much like regular recruitment, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. What works for me, not necessarily going to work for you, much like anything in life. And so instead of kind of just saying, this works, this is great, which isn't realistic for all of us, I thought instead I'd frame it more as questions and things that maybe you should consider that would help you decide kind of what your best path is. And so some of this stuff is kind of obvious, but I want to start by kind of acknowledging, and Rohit mentioned it earlier, a lot of us are looking at this as an opportunity that's kind of like a great equalizer. Everybody's got the same resources, and we're all going to be able to go out and maybe try new things, go into new territories. And while to some extent, I do believe that's true, and I've definitely sat and thought, you know what? I don't usually get to do much in Europe. I can actually do that this year. Also, though, it's not true in some ways as well. I think it's important as we're thinking about digital recruitment in the future and moving forward, that we're very realistic about where we sit. I know that I'm very fortunate to work for a big brand name university where I have connections and I've been able to build those for a period of time. But you also have to know your current place in the market and kind of where you're fitting and what's out there. You definitely don't want to ignore kind of those core places that were your main market, the schools that you've been getting in applications from years, especially as you're looking at more individual things. I think that especially with things like Webby fairs, for example, those can be a really great opportunity for a school that maybe hasn't gotten out there much to be on a platform and be on a level playing field and maybe get interest from people that they wouldn't have had before. But if you're thinking about more targeted approaches, if your name isn't something that anyone's ever heard of and you're going to try and go out to a school and say, yeah, I'm going to give you a presentation, how realistic is that really? I would say in some cases you might catch a couple people and that's great, but in a lot of cases people are going to be just as interested as they were before, and if you're not bringing something to the table, it's probably not going to be that interested. Just being very realistic. That's not to say don't try, and it's not to say that there aren't other strategies that you can use to kind of get to those places, and I'll touch on some of that. Really think about what you have to offer and bring to the table, and of course that's things like money. Everybody's still very interested in those scholarships, let me tell you, but it's also your strengths as a university and personally as a counselor. We all have different kind of sets of strengths and things that we're good at. And so if you play on those, you will be more successful in whatever you're doing digitally. And so just because I might be really good and I really enjoy presenting and doing this part of things and engaging one-to-one, I have colleagues that maybe that's not their strength and they're much better at doing the digital stuff and doing chat and things along those lines. It's important to play to what you're good at to some extent because that's going to set you up for success later, but also play to the things that you guys have available on campus as well. And think about those connections and things that you have to leverage. All of us have huge campuses. How often do we really get to pull them into the recruitment process? Very seldom, actually. Even if we have a faculty member or someone who's interested, who has the budget to pay for that person to come with us to do anything, especially if they only have a day or two available on a weekend because they're teaching at the same time? We can actually do things with them now. And not only that, a lot of people are really excited to have that opportunity to expand and connect with people in ways that they don't usually get at all. I will give you an example. This summer, I got an email from Education USA. One of my faculty members was doing a session on preparing for digital classes. I had no idea. Fortunately, I reached out to him, really nice guy, and he's like, you know what, I would do this or anything else. And so within a couple of weeks, I had him, 2 other faculty members put together a half-an-hour session for incoming students about what digital classes look like. That's not something I could normally do during the summer. I'm way too busy trying to get to fall, frankly, and I'm trying to get my life together a little bit. Now this summer, we just haven't been able to get our life together, and so that's a different thing entirely. But that's kind of utilizing something in a connection that I had on campus that I didn't even really know that I could. And because I could do it digitally, it was very easy and quick to pull together. I had my team pull together a quick email to all of our admitted students. It wasn't a huge session. We only had about 30 or 40 students attend, but that's 30 or 40 students that got feedback from our top faculty in education on how to be successful in the classroom. And so that has a huge impact. And the things that we can do kind of go beyond that as well. We all have alumni that have great experiences that they could highlight. We have current students who can do panels that maybe we wouldn't have had them do before because they're studying and they can't be gone from campus. And it's important to utilize those contacts. It's also important to listen to. And so a lot of us have high school counselor contacts, and if you don't, make some, they're awesome. And so if you're talking to people and they're asking for something, you should pay attention to what they're asking for. I've been doing sessions all summer on essays, and something that's come up every time with high school counselors is, gee, it would be really great if you did something for LORs. Personally, hate them. I don't read them that much. It's not a required part of my application, not that interested. But by the time the 10th counselor was asking for it, I decided I better do something. And so I contacted a couple of friends that I have that work for other universities that do take LORs and use them more often. Next Tuesday, I'm doing a session on LORs for counselors and teachers in India. I have 200 people signed up already. I just sent the invitation out for that on Tuesday. I'm utilizing my connections by spreading that out more, but I'm also listening to what they're asking for and trying to be responsive of their needs specifically. And then think about tools you can utilize to make things easier on you. Some of these are very obvious, like your website, social media, but also I've definitely found some things over the summer that I would have been lost without. Calendly is the best for scheduling those digital appointments. I have a free account. I will put the link in the chat for you guys, because if I had to go back and forth with all of the students that need appointments, especially over this summer, admitted students, I would have gone crazy. My inbox is already a mess. And now I can just send them a link and say, hey, pick a time, we'll have a meeting. I have it blocked so that nobody can schedule something less than 36 hours in advance. And if you want, you could even put the link to your personal Zoom meeting room in there so you don't even have to have follow-up. And if anybody wants to see what it looks like, I will put the link in for my Calendly so you can see kind of what my appointment scheduling looks like. Please don't schedule something with me unless you actually want to meet with me. That's weird. But definitely use it as a free resource. Yes, you can expand it and there are paid options too, but who's got money for that? Use the free stuff and have it help you and work for you. Now, what kind of things can we do? I want to try and wrap it up because I know we're going a bit long. If we could go to the next slide. I think that some basic stuff we can all do and we can all get right. And it's things like our website, making sure it's easy to navigate, making sure digital programming is easy to find, If you have that ability to have a maybe YouTube video of your presentation that's on demand, or have a presentation embedded that's accessible everywhere, that's something you should really look into, because Kate's right. Students don't want to sign up for your visit at whatever time you felt like having it. They want to watch it in bed in the middle of the night while they're eating snacks and have a movie on in the background. And so we need to make sure that we're accessible in ways that they're comfortable with. And then again, yes, your counselor connections are huge. They have no idea what's happening. And partially because we haven't told them. And to some extent, we don't know what's happening yet. And I think counselors are incredibly understanding of that in my experience. But the more that we can let them in and give them insights into what we do know, the better off everyone will be. And it's also very important to have a very cohesive message between you and all of your staff and your platforms and web pages. I was on Facebook the other night, because I'm old like that, looking at one of the college admissions counselors pages, and someone was talking about Michigan State, and I was like, what is this? And some counselor made a comment about applying early for our residential colleges, but that's all they said. And so students took it and were like, I need to apply now. And their counselors in there griping about us because someone had told their students to apply early. And so when the messaging kind of gets twisted through the game of telephone that happens, things get messy and people get upset. And so making sure that we're all saying the same thing, not just apply early, but apply earlier or apply early action. That can really help everybody feel more informed and also a bit better about everything else that's happening. I also would highly encourage you to turn this very, very big negative into something positive. This sucks. I would much rather be in India right now. I'm used to spending all of August there traveling around meeting people. I don't want to be here still, but it's also reality. And I feel like I've definitely been able to find some ways that moving digital has actually worked for me instead of against me. For example, usually when I go into a school visit, I'm not a huge believer in, I'm going to tell you about MSU. I'll give you a brief overview, but I would rather add some value to the session. And usually when I'm doing school visits, I've got about 15 minutes to do that. So it's got to be quick, dirty, in and out. This summer, I've been doing essay writing workshops with a friend, Julie. She's maybe in there. It's important to have a good partner. And those essay workshops have run more like an hour. Now, I know that goes against what Kate was saying, keep it brief. If you're actually talking about something that people want to hear, they will most definitely stay, especially if you make it valuable and engaging. And so we have done an hour-long deep dive into things that you should consider when you're writing your essay, different pitfalls we've seen from students, what we as admissions counselors are looking at. And we've really kind of covered everything in that hour. I can't usually do that because I have limited time and students have limited time. And so I've made this an advantage and something that I can do. Think about ways that you can take platforms that you have and make them work for you. Don't expect it to always work, because it won't, and maybe don't do too many essay workshops. I've already talked to about 1,000 students. The early bird gets the worm, sorry guys. But think about the things that you do and you do well, and that you can kind of promote that way. It's also important to be aware of the things that are already happening around you. I found out 2 weeks ago that one of my faculty members on campus had a mini MOOC that was free on how to teach online. And it talked about counseling students digitally and how to teach successful online classes and how to consider things like different levels of internet access. Oh my God, if I had known that that existed in June, I would have shared that with all of my counselor contacts, and that would have been something that maybe they could have used as a resource and a tool. It's things that promote MSU, but in a soft way. And so it is important for us to also stay connected and broad and looking at everything that's out there and available on our campuses. And then kind of finally, before moving on to my last point, remember that this is temporary. It doesn't feel like it right now because it's been lasting forever. But this is going to pass, and the things that we're doing now will impact the connections and resources we have when we leave. And so that means not ignoring the relationships that you've already built because you moved online. So of course, they'll just watch your digital platform. No, you still have to maintain those relationships with counselors and independent educational consultants and students so that they still know you're at the table and interested. Also, it's important, a lot of us are feeling a lot of pressure to enroll, and it's important to think about the ethics behind what we're doing too. I know that CEPP is suspended right now and NACAC's got a lot going on, but just because we're not enforcing things like that doesn't mean that there aren't still best practices that we should kind of self-audit and really think about how what we're doing now impacts the way that others perceive us. And here next month, NACAC's going to be voting on their new Guide to Ethical Practice, which I will put the link of the draft in there for anyone who wants to check it out. Maybe check that out and see if there are things that you could learn from and that you want to consider as you're moving forward and making your digital plans. I know a lot of us has changed a lot, but the core of what we do hasn't changed, and so we still want to keep those things in mind. And finally, on my last slide, just be really nice to yourself. We're all very student-centered and we're trying to do everything and be everything for everyone. But we're human too, and it's not that we haven't been going through this stuff at the same time. And so I know there's a lot of pressure from our offices to engage with this many people or to do this many things. But we also have to remember what's realistic for us. Some of us have kids at home that you also have to manage, and family life, and you might be teaching at the same time. And while I feel like a lot of our offices talk the talk of being kind to ourselves and being considerate, when it comes down to it at the end of the day, you have to protect your time and what you're able to do yourself. And just consider that. Not that I can say I'm great at it. I've definitely worked 12-hour days a couple times this week, so practice what I say, not what I actually do.
Thanks, Amber. So we just wanted to mention we did release a whole bunch of new Webby fairs in case anybody is interested, and they're actually on our website as well. But you know, that's not the purpose of this. So Rohit, if you want to go to the end, we wanted to open it up for questions in case anybody has any questions or comments, things that have worked for you, things that haven't worked for you, anything you'd want to share with anybody else. Anybody?
I didn't think of something that I forgot. There are some groups that are putting digital visits and stuff online so that counselors and students can find it in one place. IC3 is one of them. So if you have digital events that you want to promote, you can put it in through their platform and they'll host it on their website. Also, I don't know how many of you guys are in college admissions counselors. Sometimes it's a bit more domestic focused, but someone posted yesterday a Google Doc that's got college virtual tours, and it's like one link with everything there. So updating is really helpful.
That's a good point, Amber. I'm actually pulling that link to the virtual repository, so I'll drop that in here too.
Also, definitely consider you don't have to do visits and sessions alone. A lot of times counselors are asking people to come in groups, and I've definitely seen where if you don't have a group or a group of contacts in universities that you already know, maybe you're newer to the field, I've seen people posting it on social media in chat or group chatters and saying, hey, would anybody like to do group visits? And you would be surprised how many people reply and are interested in teaming up to do stuff together to connect. And if you have a group of people together doing a session and you share that with a counselor, I guarantee you they will be more interested in what your group is doing, whether it's your group talking about individual schools and maybe the theme that you have in common. Maybe you guys are all small liberal arts schools and you talk about what liberal arts is, something along those lines. They will be much more interested in that than just a solo session.
Awesome. So I do want to apologize that we've gone overboard the designated time, all of us actually, but yeah.
We're all more excited about this topic than we thought we were, I guess.
and you know, this was an interesting topic. I think the entire recruitment fraternity is looking at it. We're all data hungry people. We all want to learn what is happening and you know what is working, what is not working, and I think even from Amber's point of view, one of the key takeaways for us is that not one size fits all. I mean, we have to look at our institutional reputation, you know, look at different you know things and then analyze our recruitment strategies. So yeah, that's something that we would want to see. If there are any questions, we'll be here and you know we can take some questions if you have any.
Great. Rohit, can you actually, we had a request, can you move it back one slide for our upcoming events so people can look at those dates? And then we also had a question, I'm assuming, Ying, this is about the Webby Fairs. You do get the student contact information, so we give you all the student contact information that we get from their registration form, including some of those things that Rohit was pulling, so like the subjects that they're interested in and sort of, you know, where they're interested in going, as well as their email and their phone and anything else that they decide to share with you. Their grade is required. So we do give you a list of everybody that's registered, not just people who attended, and then we also give you a breakdown of who attended your specific virtual room and how long they spent there, so you have that as well. There are no registration deadlines for our events, however, they're capped. So first come, first serve. Our next one is Latin America on the 27th, and that one has 4 spots left as of this morning. So yeah, the first come, first serve. But we just opened 6 more for winter and spring, which makes me a little sad personally. But you know what? Or as Amber said, you gotta turn the positive or turn the negative into a positive. So we want to make sure that we're at least giving students and counselors the opportunity to connect with y'all, even if we're not going to be seeing them in person. So but yeah, we're always open to conversations and questions, and love to, you know, hear what everybody else is doing as well, not just Webby Fairs, but kind of, you know, we're a community of international student recruitment, and so it's great to especially at this time to just kind of share your feedback with everybody and let people know what's working.
And please feel free to reach out to us if you want to have further conversations, discuss data, or you know, just learn more, anything, and we'll be happy to help. But yeah, I do want to thank you all for joining us today. And you know, one thing that is pretty much common across, I think, all the attendees and even us as presenters is that we all are missing travel. So just hang in there. You know, this too shall pass, and let's keep doing what we do best. That is, you know, supporting students in finding or navigating their higher education opportunities.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. It was really nice to see your names, if not your faces. So hope to see you at a Webby Fair soon, but otherwise, until next time, as Rohit said, we'll be doing more of these as we go along. So thanks,
Great.
everybody.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Albert. Thanks Kate.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
I'm going to be stealing a slide from this presentation to put forward at my annual review this year.
That's cool. Why not?
Never hurts, never hurts.
No, never hurts. All right, thanks again, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.